6-7 loss to the Houston Texans in their preseason opener. A lot to discuss, including second-year quarterback Jordan Love's debut in the NFL. However, before we get into that, as always, Ryan knows the drill. You know the drill. You can be a part of our conversation. If you're over on Facebook or YouTube, leave us a question down in the chat. We always love to hear from you. We'll get to some of your thoughts toward the end of our conversation today. Jordan Love has not played in a football game, let alone an NFL game, in almost 2 years, Ryan. And still, Love looked pretty decent in his NFL debut. He was 12 of 17 passing, 122 yards. 88 of those yards came on the lone touchdown drive of the night. In his debut, given all of the circumstances, how did Love look today?
Well, you were saying it as we were walking out here. Imagine if I didn't write for, I think it was like 603 days since Utah State lost 51-41 to Kent State in the whatever something Cisco Bowl. I don't know what the bowl game was called, but imagine if I didn't write for 600 days and then I just had to write on deadline, and was thrown into the fire. That would be difficult. So, I mean, it was a high degree of difficulty out here for Jordan Love. He mastered it. 12 of 17, 122 yards, 110.4 passer rating, had the touchdown. As he said, he would have preferred it not to be a screen pass for his first touchdown, but, got to the end zone. It was a really good drive that he had. Hit the 34-yard throw down the right seam to Jay Sternberger. Look, that was an easy layup of a throw, but it's also the kind of throw where a young quarterback that hasn't played in 2 years might show the nerves, and he didn't miss it. I mean, give him credit for that. And then it seemed like he really got into a rhythm on that drive. So, high degree of difficulty. I think low expectations. I tweeted it before the game. Aaron Rodgers, his first preseason game was like 2 of 6 for 9 yards, and a week later at Buffalo didn't do much better. This was awfully good. It was awfully good. A really good night for Jordan Love.
Following the game, head coach Matt LaFleur said that he wanted to see Jordan Love get a little bit more loose, let it rip a little bit more often, especially considering we saw what Love was able to do on that 30-plus yard connection to Jay Sternberger down the right seam. What does Love need to do between now and the next preseason game against the New York Jets to show that he's feeling a little bit more comfortable?
Let her rip. Let her rip. I mean, that's what Matt LaFleur said. They pointed both. I asked both Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love any plays come to mind, and both of them pointed to the 15-yarder to Devin Funchess where he made a tremendous catch. Devin Funchess had a night, by the way. He had his game's leading receiver. 6 catches for 70 yards or so on 8 targets. He had himself a night, but he made a really good catch on that 15-yarder across the middle of the field. He was wide open. Another thing that really stood out tonight, I remember Aaron Rodgers saying, college wide open, the receivers in Matt LaFleur's scheme last year. They were really, Matt LaFleur schemed up guys wide open again tonight, even without the top of their depth chart. Jordan Love was able to take advantage, but Jordan Love said, look, on that throw, there could have been more there. There could have been more yards there if he would have let her rip, if he would have, fired it. The other thing, though, Matt LaFleur said that it's kind of a byproduct of not playing for 2 years. It's not that Jordan Love can't let it go. It's not the arm. It's dude hadn't played for 2 years. I mean, all things considered, really good night.
All eyes were on Jordan Love tonight. My eyes, a lot of other eyes, were also on the offensive line, the men standing in front of Jordan Love. I think we saw roughly 3 different permutations along the offensive line in tonight's game. The most notable, the starting offensive line, we saw rookie center Josh Myers get some snaps. We also saw John Runyon Jr. at left guard. Then later in the game, John Runyon moved over to center, and Ben Braden came over at left guard. Overall, a lot of movement. It's going to take some time for us to be able to digest exactly how the offensive line performed tonight. However, what were your initial impressions of those men out there tonight?
Well, first of all, Matt LaFleur said that Elton Jenkins and Billy Turner aren't playing in the preseason. So this is what you're going to see. Most specifically, Josh Nijman. I know how to spell it. Josh Nijman at left tackle played a lot of snaps there. Big opportunity for him. And obviously he got beat on the strip fumble. At halftime, Matt LaFleur said that it really didn't have much to do with Jordan Love, but he did after the game say that Jordan Love, he's got to have a better internal clock on a deep drop like that and be able to get rid of the ball quicker. So it was on both of them. But this is the protection he's going to have. So it's going to be interesting to see how that internal clock develops and if the offensive line can hold up and give them better protection.
We saw a parade of running backs run through the gauntlet all night, from Patrick Taylor to Dexter Williams to Kylan Hill. Kylan Hill had the lone touchdown of the night, and it wasn't even on a run. It ended up being a 22-yard catch and run, a screen pass from Jordan Love to seal the deal and put some points on the board for the Packers. However, the run game wasn't really able to get going. I think they had maybe as a whole 40 yards collectively, and that includes some negative runs from quarterback Kurt Benkert. So when you look ahead to this next game, how does this running game need to improve in order to make an impact on this offense?
Well, 40 yards and like 32 from Dexter Williams. Now, Dexter Williams had some big holes as well. He was running really hard. There was that 1 8-yard run where he pushed the pile for the first down. But Kylan Hill had the good screen catch. Didn't get much going on the ground. Matt LaFleur said that he didn't think that he had much opportunity to get much going on the ground. The holes weren't there. So Kylan Hill's pretty clearly asserted himself as the third running back right now, not just because he was the first one up after A.J. Dillon tonight, but he's the kickoff returner. You're the kickoff returner. You're on the team. You're on the team. On that depth chart, you're behind Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon as the third running back. So special teams is where he's really, and if they keep three running backs, that's the big question. But it's good positioning for Kylan Hill at the moment.
Let's flip it over to the defense. Head coach Matt LaFleur said he was overall pretty pleased with how Joe Barry ran his scheme in a very watered-down sense, granted, in the preseason game. He wanted, and by he, I mean LaFleur, wanted to see a little bit stickier coverage from the secondary in tonight's game. However, one player that stuck out to me personally, and I'm sure to you as well, Ryan, was inside linebacker Oren Burks, who was wearing a lot of different, I want to say hats, but I suppose helmets.
Helmets.
Might be a better,
hard hats.
a better term.
They're hats, but harder.
In football, not only was he playing inside linebacker, he was also being split out wide and playing in coverage, being lined up as an outside cornerback. He was brought on blitzes a number of times. I think Burks ended up finishing with 6 tackles, 2 tackles for a loss, and also 1 sack. How much does Oren Burks need to show in these preseason games to prove that he is worthy of a 53-man roster
Well,
spot?
he needs to show a lot. He's been a special teams ace, but hadn't played a lot of defensive snaps. That's what Oren Burks was drafted to be in the 3rd round. Dude's got great speed. He was drafted to be that really athletic inside linebacker. You saw, especially early in the game, him shooting the gaps on that 3rd down. Yeah, he overran the play, but he came back. He blew up the play on that initial 3rd down by getting into the backfield, then finished off the tackle. That sack, it was a blink of an eye. I mean, I had to watch the replay. Like, who was that? Because it was so quick. And that's what he's supposed to be. And then you add in the coverage, right? The versatility, the fact that he's a converted safety from Vanderbilt. He was drafted to provide that type of athleticism in coverage. It's a really good night for Oren Burks. It's going to be interesting to see if he can build off this because, again, that is what he's supposed to be. He showed it tonight. You gotta continue that now.
Let's head over to Facebook to take some of your questions. Thank you very much, Night Owls, for hanging out with us. I know it's getting late in some places in this country. Let's go over to our friend. Yeah. Yes. Levi on Facebook wants to know, I'm assuming you mean Funchess, already win a roster spot? When I had our pregame show with Pete Doherty earlier today, we had a viewer list the number of receivers that they thought would make the 53-man roster. 6 receivers included in that list was Devin Funchess. Pete pointed out that he thinks that Funchess might be the only player in that list. I think some of the others included Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Amari Rodgers, just to name a couple of them. But Pete thought that it wasn't necessarily a lock for Funchess to make the roster. After a performance like tonight, he's slowly showing why he deserves a 53-man roster spot. What else does he need to show not only in training camp, but also in these preseason games to prove that he's worthy of a spot?
2 more games, right? I mean, if he does what he did tonight through the preseason, through all 3, he's probably going to play his way onto this roster. I think he's got to do that, but I thought coming into tonight, you just flip a coin. 50-50 if Devin Funchess is going to make the roster. He had a really good start for himself. Now he just has to continue it.
All right, let us move on. Thank you so much, Levi, for the question. Let's see.
That's my fault. I gave a short answer.
That's okay.
I never give short answers. I'm always long-winded.
Speaking of Devin Funchess, Mike wants to know if we have any word on Funchess' injury. The short answer is no. I don't think we have any word, and nor do we have any word about any of the other injuries. Worth noting, something that we didn't mention to all of you before.
Definitely worth noting.
So the plan for Jordan Love was for him to play 3 quarters tonight. He ultimately only played the first half of the game, and then quarterback Kurt Benkert came in and relieved him. That was because on the strip sack that occurred toward the end of the first half on Jordan Love, he dinged up his throwing shoulder. It sounds like he'll be okay. We don't have too much detail on what dinged up means. However, he was in front of us in the podium. He didn't appear to have any apparatus on his shoulder, and he was in pretty good spirits.
He said he wasn't in pain after the game. He was not wearing a sling. He said that at halftime he was checked out by the medical staff, and the decision was made to hold him out. Really, it sounds like for precautionary. I asked Jordan Love point blank after the game, are you concerned that being dinged up? And he said his shoulder felt strainish, which I appreciated because it made up an entirely new word, I believe. I've never heard that before, but I'm going to use it now. He said it felt strainish. I asked are you concerned if that's going to affect your preseason? He said no. He'll be back out here in a week against the New York Jets. We'll find out more from Matt LaFleur tomorrow, LaFleur said, but I would expect it to be minor.
Yes, we'll circle back. We get to hear tomorrow from Matt LaFleur. I believe we get to hear from some of the offensive coaches as well, in addition to general manager Brian Gutekunst. So we'll have more updates for you over on PackersNews.com. Let's take a question here from Nolan. Nolan wants to know, will Hill be used in the passing game, Kylan Hill, during the regular season? We got to see Kylan Hill work his magic in the passing game a little bit today. Granted, his magic was on a screen. However, we got to see him a little bit in the passing game tonight. How much more do you anticipate Kylan Hill being able to be utilized in the passing game?
Well, the magic also happened with Aaron Jones not suited up and A.J. Dillon obviously limited. Those are your guys at running back. I mean, Kylan Hill is going to be a kickoff returner for this team. Barring injury at the top of the depth chart, not a lot of opportunities because you want Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon getting the football. So he's going to be primarily special teams, and unless there's injuries, I don't see a lot of touches, a lot of snaps for Kylan Hill.
Frank over on Facebook wants to know how rookie wide receiver Amari Rodgers looked. Not only was Rodgers active in the passing game, he also had a couple opportunities to field some returns as well. I believe one of them was a botched return, but listen, it's preseason. Things are going to happen. All in all, how did Rodgers look in his NFL debut?
Well, that was an awkward moment. You don't want to field the punt at the 5-yard line, and if you do that, you definitely don't want to muff it into the end zone. That's compounding mistakes. So look, rookie, first preseason game. I don't think ultimately it's a big deal. He did show some headiness getting out of the end zone, which was a really, really good thing. That would have been triple combo on the mistake if he was sacked or not sacked, but you know what I mean, tackled for a safety. Yeah, I think ultimately give it more time.
Levi says special teams play still looks iffy at best. What can they do to finally fix it? Today was special teams coordinator Maurice Strayton's big coming out party, I suppose. It was his first day at the helm of the ship of the special teams unit. The Packers special teams have a lot of improvement to do. Haven't fielded a top 10 special teams unit since 2007. So
it's been a minute. How
much more development does this group need to do in order to start to move up the rankings a little bit this season?
I'd say a lot to quite a lot. Now, here's the thing. What you saw on special teams tonight included some bottom-of-the-roster guys. 30 players did not dress tonight for the Packers. So among that 30, you're going to see a lot more special teams, some special teamers. So, yeah, I don't know that. And defensively, like a lot of bottom-of-the-roster guys defensively too. So I don't know that you can put much stock into it. When I say a lot to quite a lot, I'm going off last year. They've got miles to go from last year, and we'll see. Tonight, don't throw a lot of stock into that. We'll see if they're able to make those strides because it's like Ty Summers said this week, Olivia. There's literally nowhere to go but up because if you look at the rankings, mathematically, statistically, there is literally nowhere to go but up.
That's one way to set the expectations. Levi also wants to know, is Jay Sternberger ready to break out year 3? He looked good tonight. He did have the one seemingly somewhat explosive play in the passing game on that 30-plus yard reception from Jordan Love. How much of an impact can Jay Sternberger make in the tight ends room this upcoming season in year 3?
Well, it helps when the secondary forgets to cover you. That is usually beneficial, and it was for Jay Sternberger. With that said, he showed. I mean, that straight line speed that he's supposed to have down the seam. That's what it's what he's drafted to do. Just like Oren Burks was drafted for his speed, and as a line, Jay Sternberger was drafted because he can run. He's a move guy and as a tight end. So, yeah, he that was a good moment for him. Obviously, whatever he does this season is going to be delayed because he's going to have the 2-game suspension. So he's going to get a lot of work in the preseason. Needs a lot of work. He's one of those guys that needs a lot of work, and then he's going to sit for 2 weeks minimum, and we'll see what he's able to do.
Thank you all very much for your questions over on Facebook. We appreciate you joining us tonight. That is going to do it for us. We will be back come, I believe the next open practice is on Wednesday.
I don't even know what day it is today. We're at that point in camp. I don't know. It's nighttime.
I believe it is on Wednesday, so we will have the latest from Packers-Jets joint practice on Wednesday for all of you toward the end of the day. So make sure you come back to Packers News Facebook or YouTube. We will continue to have these conversations with you guys throughout training camp and the